It was the kind of moment that felt like someone had suddenly flipped my entire world upside down. He looked at me with a calmness that felt colder than any winter breeze, and in a voice as steady as a stone, he said, "You have two choices. Either you watch me spend the night with my ex, or you step aside and let me do it." His words landed like quiet explosions in the air, each one igniting a fuse I never knew existed inside me. And now, you are probably wondering, what did I do next? Do you really want to know what I did that turned his entire world on its head? This is just the beginning. Every step from here will pull you deeper into a story you will not be able to look away from. So get ready, because what you are about to discover will keep you hooked until the very last moment. A quiet rhythm shaped the life I thought belonged to me, a rhythm built on early mornings, long hours, and a belief that stability was something I had earned through effort alone. Every day began before sunrise, the world still dark outside my window while I prepared myself for another demanding shift at the workshop I owned. The scent of metal and machine oil clung to my clothes more faithfully than any perfume ever could, and I convinced myself that this was the fragrance of a life I had built with my own hands. A steady sense of purpose guided me through the shop each morning. The clatter of tools, the hum of engines, and the constant stream of customers formed the backdrop of my existence. Long days shaped me into someone who understood responsibility, someone who believed that dedication could hold a life together. I worked harder than most people I knew, and I took pride in that truth. At least I believed I did. A subtle innocence lived inside those beliefs, the kind of innocence that grows when a person thinks effort alone can protect everything they love. I trusted routines. I trusted patterns. I trusted the idea that coming home tired meant I was doing enough. Dreams of expanding my shop one day accompanied me through every welding spark and grinding noise. Expectations of a peaceful marriage filled the quiet drives home, where I imagined dinners shared, conversations exchanged, and a future built brick by brick beside someone who claimed to love me. A softer part of me believed that I had chosen a partner who understood my strength and valued my sacrifices. I allowed myself to think that love was a simple equation of loyalty and support. That part of me existed untouched by suspicion, untouched by betrayal, untouched by the possibility that the person I trusted most could one day become the source of my deepest fracture. A strange comfort lived in that innocence, because I truly believed my life was moving in the right direction. I believed that my long hours were temporary. I believed that one day I would slow down, breathe more, live more, and share more. I believed my marriage was not perfect, but stable enough to grow into something stronger. I believed my dreams were safe beside him. A sense of trust guided me through every evening when I returned home exhausted, expecting warmth, hoping for rest. The driveway, the doorway, the kitchen lights, everything felt familiar and reassuring. I told myself that hard work always paid off. I told myself that loyalty was always returned. I told myself that the life I had built was solid beneath my feet. A quiet truth lingered beneath those beliefs. I never imagined danger could grow inside peace. I never imagined betrayal could hide behind calm expressions and gentle tones. I never imagined that the man waiting for me at home would become the storm I never prepared for. A final moment of innocence rested in those days, because I still believed that my marriage stood on foundations that could not be shaken. I still believed that effort meant security. I still believed that trust was enough to hold everything together. I had no idea that the life I believed in was already beginning to crack beneath the surface. A memory of gentler days still drifts through my mind, carrying the version of him I once believed existed. He entered my life with a quiet confidence, the kind that felt safe rather than overwhelming. His smile carried a warmth that softened the exhaustion from my longest days, and his laughter held a calm sincerity that made trust feel effortless. In those early moments, I truly believed I had found someone who understood the rhythm of my life better than anyone before him. A sense of comfort wrapped itself around our beginning. He appeared attentive, thoughtful, and almost naturally kind. Long conversations stretched deep into the night, where he spoke about growth, purpose, and the type of future he imagined building beside someone he loved. I listened with a heart eager to believe him. Because he made those dreams sound achievable, he made me feel as if loyalty meant as much to him as it meant to me. A series of consistent gestures strengthened that belief. He remembered my schedules, brought coffee to my shop on difficult mornings, and waited for me when my work kept me late. His presence felt like a gentle reassurance, a reminder that I did not have to hold the world together alone. I convinced myself that this was the definition of a strong partnership. A soft glow surrounded those early years. Friends admired the way he looked at me, and family praised the balance we seemed to have found. Social gatherings filled with laughter painted us as a couple grounded in mutual respect and trust. Even I believed that the cracks other relationships faced would never appear in ours. A growing sense of perfection settled into my mind as we built routines together. We shared responsibilities, encouraged each other's ambitions, and quietly shaped plans for a future that appeared steady and meaningful. I watched him speak passionately about the life he wanted, and I supported those ambitions because I believed partnership meant standing behind each other without hesitation. A deeper connection formed when he shared fragments of his past, the insecurities he carried, and the fears left behind by former relationships. I saw vulnerability and confused it with honesty. I believed openness meant safety. I believed shared pain meant trust. I believed understanding his wounds meant I could help him heal. A gentle truth lived beneath it all. I loved the version of himself he allowed me to see. I loved the narrative he carefully presented. I loved the illusion of stability he created with deliberate tenderness. That illusion made me feel chosen, valued, and understood. A stronger belief grew from that love. I thought he admired my strength. I thought he respected my dedication. I thought he saw me as his equal and cared for the life we were building. Every small gesture reinforced that hope, and I allowed it to overshadow the brief moments when a distant look flickered across his eyes. A subtle shift in him remained invisible to me then, because the comfort of illusion felt safer than confronting an uncomfortable truth. I wanted our life to remain as perfect as it appeared, so I ignored the faint shadows gathering behind his smiles. I reminded myself that love required patience. I convinced myself that every relationship faced uncertain phases. I assured myself that the man I had fallen in love with still existed. I had no idea the man I believed in was merely a reflection he had learned to control. A faint distance began forming between us, long before I recognized it as a warning. It did not arrive with arguments or accusations. It arrived quietly, slipping into the spaces between conversations, turning once effortless exchanges into something strained and unfamiliar. At first, I convinced myself that he was tired or distracted, because the idea of something darker did not fit the story I believed we were living. A shift in his eyes became the first sign I silently ignored. They no longer lingered on me with the warmth I once trusted. Instead, they wandered, unfocused and restless, as if searching for something I could not give. I would speak and he would nod, but the connection behind the gesture had thinned. The The man who once waited eagerly for every detail of my day now seemed to drift somewhere far beyond the walls of our home. A gradual change in his routines followed soon after. He began stepping outside to take calls he claimed were unimportant. He returned with explanations that felt too polished to be natural. Messages appeared on his phone at odd hours, and his thumb hovered over the screen a moment too long before he locked it. I noticed the hesitation in his movements, the way he angled the phone away from my line of sight. Yet I allowed myself to look away instead of questioning him. A different tone slipped into his voice as weeks passed. He grew impatient with small things that never mattered before. Simple questions received vague answers. Suggestions turned into dismissals. His warmth, once steady and reassuring, shifted into a strange coolness that left me wondering what I had done wrong. He seemed present in body, but distant in spirit, as if something inside him had already begun to drift. A slow ache settled inside me as this distance deepened. I tried to fill the silence with understanding, reminding myself that every relationship experienced phases of imbalance. I told myself he needed space. I told myself he needed time. I told myself the exhaustion from work was clouding his emotions. I repeated these explanations because the alternative felt too painful to consider. A pattern of unexplained absences soon replaced our shared evenings. He left the house with rehearsed excuses, returning hours later with a tired smile that did not reach his eyes. His clothes carried unfamiliar scents, and his mood alternated between forced affection and startling indifference. The man who once rushed home to be near me now appeared eager to step away the moment he arrived. A strange heaviness settled in the atmosphere of our home. Every room felt slightly altered, as if the comfort that once lived within those walls had slipped away unnoticed. Even his footsteps sounded different, lighter when he left and heavier when he returned, as though the outside world offered him something he no longer found with me. A sense of dread began to whisper inside me, urging me to notice what I kept refusing to see. The emotional distance, the guarded phone, the sudden protectiveness over his privacy, the unfamiliar tension in the air. Each sign formed a pattern too clear to dismiss. Yet I clung to the belief that our foundation was strong enough to hold us steady. A final shift occurred when he stopped meeting my eyes altogether. Conversations turned into brief exchanges of words without meaning. Moments that once felt intimate became empty motions neither of us questioned. The quiet between us grew deeper than any argument could have made it. I understood then, in a way I could not yet admit out loud, that the world I thought we shared had already begun to break apart. I stood on one side of a widening distance, watching the man I loved drift further away with every passing day. A strange heaviness hung in the air the moment I stepped through the front door. A heaviness so unfamiliar that it stopped me before I could take another step. The house had always greeted me with a sense of relief after long hours at the shop, but that day something in its silence felt sharp, almost watchful, as if the walls themselves were waiting for me to notice what they already knew. A stillness settled across the living room in a way that felt unnatural. The usual hum of life inside our home was missing. No faint music playing from the speaker, no sound of running water, no rustling from the kitchen. The quiet stretched across the space like a warning. Even the air felt different, holding a chill that did not belong to the season or the weather outside. A subtle shift in the shadows caught my eye as I placed my tools on the counter. Nothing had moved, yet everything felt out of place. The cushions lay where I left them. The lights remained untouched, and the scent of the house had not changed. But an instinct deep inside me whispered that something essential had shifted in my absence. A faint echo of footsteps from down the hallway made me pause. They were not loud, just a soft movement, but enough to pull my attention toward the bedroom. I stood still, listening closely, and felt an unsettling tightness form in my chest. He was home. Yet his presence did not feel familiar. It felt distant, like a stranger moving through rooms that once belonged to both of us. A fragile breath escaped me as I walked toward the kitchen, trying to steady myself. I called his name, expecting the usual warm reply, but the answer that drifted back carried none of the softness I once knew. His voice sounded controlled, composed, almost rehearsed. The tone alone deepened the unease settling under my skin. A tension laced the air when I entered the kitchen doorway. He stood by the counter, leaning against it with an unnatural stillness, as if he had been waiting for me with a purpose he could not hide. His posture held a stiffness that set off alarms inside me, and the crispness of his clothes suggested he had prepared for this moment long before I arrived. A chill moved down my spine when I noticed the contrast between my exhaustion and his deliberate appearance. My day had left its marks on me, oil stains on my sleeves, metal dust clinging to my hair, but he looked startlingly polished, almost staged. His clean shirt, neatly styled hair, and composed expression felt like pieces of a puzzle that did not match the atmosphere around us. A strange tension flickered in his eyes when he finally looked at me. There was no affection, no warmth, no trace of the man I had fallen for. Instead, an unfamiliar distance separated us, as if he had already stepped beyond the boundaries of our relationship and was waiting for me to catch up to his decision. A tightening sensation settled in my stomach as I waited for him to speak. The silence between us stretched long enough to make the room feel smaller, heavier. I sensed that whatever he was about to say would alter the path I thought we were on, and a part of me knew that this moment would not end with comfort or clarity. A quiet dread washed over me when he finally took a breath, his expression firm and strangely detached. The atmosphere around us seemed to brace itself, as if every object in the room understood before I did that the world I believed in was about to change forever. That day, the house did not simply feel different. It warned me. It whispered truths I was not ready to face. It prepared me for the words that would destroy everything I thought I understood about him, about us, and about the life I believed we shared. A quiet tension circled the kitchen like an unseen storm as he straightened his posture. The kind of posture a person adopts when they have already rehearsed every word. His eyes settled on me with a steady calmness that felt unnatural. I waited for him to speak, but the silence stretched long enough for my heartbeat to begin pounding against my ribs. A shallow breath left his mouth before he finally broke the stillness. "We need to talk," he said, and the tone carried none of the concern that usually follows such words. It felt deliberate, prepared, and delivered with the precision of someone stepping onto a stage. A tightening sensation gripped my chest as I placed my water bottle on the counter. "About what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even though unease crawled through me. A careful pause filled the space before he continued. "About us, about this life, about what I truly want." His gaze did not waver. "I feel trapped. I feel stuck in a routine that does not allow me to grow." A subtle crack ran through the air between us. "Trapped?" I repeated. "How?" A slow exhale left his lips, and he folded his arms as if bracing himself. "I have been doing a lot of self-work lately, reading, reflecting, understanding my desires. I have come to realize that monogamy is limiting me. It restricts my growth, my spirit, my potential." A cold wave rushed through me. I stared at him, searching for signs of humor, sarcasm, anything that would soften the blow. "Where is this coming from?" A slight shift in his eyes, revealed the truth before he spoke it. "There is someone who understands me better," he said quietly. "Someone who sees a version of me that I want to explore further." A sharp ringing filled my ears. "Who?" The word barely escaped my mouth. A hesitation flickered through him, brief but telling. "Sasha," he replied, "my ex." A coldness settled inside me as if the world had tilted beneath my feet. I felt the floor, the counter, the walls, everything around me blur for a moment. "Your ex?" I repeated slowly. "The same woman you promised you would never speak to again." A defensive calm settled over his expression. She and I reconnected. It was emotional at first. Conversations, shared insights, realizations about my life. She understands pieces of me that you never did. A sting spread through my chest, sharp and deep. "So you have been talking to her behind my back." A dismissive wave of his hand attempted to soften the betrayal. "It is not like that. I am being honest now. I am trying to do this the ethical way." He inhaled slowly. "Which is why I am giving you two choices." A silence fell, heavier than before. A measured breath left him. "Choice one," he said. "You stay and you accept that I want to explore a deeper connection with her. You allow me the freedom to spend nights with her and continue this journey." His tone remained steady, almost gentle, as if he believed he was offering something reasonable. A chill crept through my spine as he continued. "Choice two. If you cannot accept it, then you step aside and allow me to do it without interference. You do not question it. You do not stand in my way." A hollow stillness wrapped around me. The room felt smaller. The walls seemed to close in. My breath grew shallow as I processed the cruelty disguised as clarity. "So either I stand there and watch you cheat, or I silently move out of your path while you do it," I whispered. A faint nod confirmed the truth. Those are the options. A quiet crack formed inside me, not from weakness, but from awakening. Something shifted in the space where pain had just settled. The betrayal burned, but beneath that burn, something colder and clearer began to take shape. A steady calm spread through my thoughts as I looked at him. The man standing before me was not the man I believed in, not the partner I built my life beside. He was someone who had already stepped out of our marriage long before he spoke the words aloud. That moment did not break me. It transformed me. It carved a new resolve inside my chest, silent and sharp, waiting for the right moment to rise. A heavy silence settled over the house the moment he walked away, leaving me standing in the kitchen with his ultimatum hanging unresolved in the air. The lights above me flickered slightly, though nothing was wrong with the wiring. Perhaps it was only my vision that wavered. My breath hitched, shallow and uneven, as if my chest had forgotten how to rise and fall on its own. A tremor moved through my hands before I could stop it. The strength I carried through years of hard work wavered beneath the weight of his betrayal. My knees felt weak, yet they held me upright, as though they refused to collapse before I did. A single tear escaped, despite my attempt to remain composed, and once it fell, the others followed with an unstoppable force. A soft, broken sound slipped from my throat as I sank onto the nearest chair. The house, once a place of comfort, now echoed with the hollow ache of everything I had believed in. I pressed my palms against my face, but the sobs forced their way through, shaking my entire body with a grief I had never imagined I would feel. The betrayal sat heavy in my chest, an unfamiliar pain that spread through me with every breath. A numbness slowly replaced the initial burst of emotion, creeping in like a cold fog. My tears slowed, not because the pain had eased, but because my body could no longer keep up with the storm. I stared at the floor without seeing it, my gaze lost in a vast emptiness that felt deeper than the night outside. A harsh truth whispered through my mind as the hours passed. I was alone with a man who no longer loved me. I was living inside a home that no longer belonged to the future I once imagined. Every memory that surrounded me now carried a quietly broken edge. The pictures on the wall, the worn cushions on the couch, even the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the hallway. All of it felt like a reflection of a lie I had lived without knowing. A restless energy forced me to stand as the night deepened. I wandered through the house as though searching for proof that something meaningful remained. Yet every corner felt foreign. I touched the back of the couch where he used to sit beside me, and the emptiness of the gesture sent a sharp ache through my chest. I opened drawers, closed them, walked into the bedroom, only to turn back around. My mind drifted through every moment we had shared, trying to find the place where the truth had begun to unravel. A war unfolded within my thoughts as sleep refused to come. I lay awake in the dim light of the spare room, staring at the ceiling while the shadows shifted softly across it. My heart replayed his words with relentless precision, each repetition slicing deeper into the fragile layers of my trust. Every breath carried a heaviness that felt impossible to release. A quiet shift began to take shape within that sleepless torment. Beneath the sorrow, a small spark of clarity flickered. It was faint at first, buried beneath grief and disbelief, but it grew with every passing moment. The realization settled slowly. This collapse was not the end of me. This pain was not the final chapter. A stronger stillness filled me as dawn approached. My eyes burned. My body felt drained. But somewhere, deep inside, a fragile determination began to form. He believed his ultimatum had left me powerless. He believed I would break, surrender, or disappear quietly. He had no idea that the moment he shattered the life I believed in was the same moment I began building the strength to confront him. That night did not destroy me, it awakened me. A quiet shift took shape inside me the morning after his ultimatum. A shift so subtle that even I did not recognize it at first. The shock had drained me the night before, but when sunlight crept into the room, something within me had hardened into stillness. The tears had dried and the trembling had stopped. In their place, an unfamiliar calm waited, steady and sharp. A deliberate silence separated us as we moved through the house. He expected anger, questions, or emotional collapse. Instead, I offered nothing. Not a reaction, not a plea, not even a hint of the devastation he had caused. My stillness unsettled him, though he tried to hide it behind practiced expressions and shallow attempts at normalcy. A new awareness guided my movements as I watched him through the doorway while drinking my morning coffee. His routine, once predictable, now revealed inconsistencies I had ignored before. His phone never left his hand. His smile came too quickly. His eyes darted toward the screen every time it vibrated. He angled the device away from my view in a way that betrayed more than he intended to hide. A flicker of discomfort crossed his face every time he noticed me observing him. He wanted emotional chaos from me, because chaos would have given him power. But quiet observation offered him nothing. It stripped away his control. He cleared his throat, made excuses, stepped into another room, and shut the door behind him with unnecessary care, as though silence could disguise betrayal. A cold clarity settled deeper in my thoughts each time he behaved differently than the man I once knew. His steps grew lighter when he checked his messages, heavier when he returned. His voice softened only when he spoke on the phone behind closed doors. His laughter, once genuine, now sounded thin and strained, reserved for someone on the other end of a private line. A pattern began to form in front of me, piece by piece. He left the house at the same hours every week, offering rushed explanations about errands or personal development sessions. He returned late with faint traces of perfumes that did not belong to me. His excuses repeated themselves, looping in familiar phrases he clearly believed would keep suspicion at bay. A new strength emerged inside me as I recorded these details silently. I stopped asking questions because the answers he offered no longer held meaning. I stopped seeking reassurance because his expressions had already revealed everything I needed to know. I stopped offering him the emotional access he once used to mask his truths. A strange empowerment came from watching instead of reacting. Pain had forced me into stillness, but that stillness sharpened into focus. I noticed how he flinched when I entered the room unexpectedly. I noticed the rapid way he cleared notifications from his screen. I noticed the careful attention he gave to his appearance before certain outings. Each observation became a thread, weaving a pattern that pointed to a truth he believed I was too fragile or too blinded by love to see. A new discipline grew inside me as I controlled my expressions. I remained calm, composed, and unreadable. He assumed the silence meant surrender. He mistook my distance for defeat. He relaxed into his secrecy, convinced I had accepted his warped sense of freedom. His confidence became the very flaw that allowed me to see everything clearly. A quiet resolve formed beneath my ribs, steady and deliberate. I no longer looked at him with the eyes of someone searching for answers. I looked at him the way a witness studies evidence at the scene of a crime. Every word, every gesture, every flinch carried meaning. I understood then that the pain he caused me had not broken me. It had transformed me into someone capable of seeing the truth without fear. The woman he believed would crumble under his ultimatum had disappeared. In her place stood a woman who was ready to uncover every hidden piece of his betrayal. The observation had begun, and I was no longer afraid of what I might find. A quiet realization struck me one evening as he rushed out of the house with another rehearsed excuse. If he believed he could hide the truth behind half-hearted explanations and secretive smiles, then he had forgotten who I was. I had built my career through precision, patience, and a relentless attention to detail. I could take apart an engine and identify a flaw smaller than a grain of dust. Finding the flaws in his lies required the same skill, only a different kind of light. A familiar device on the bookshelf caught my attention as the door closed behind him. The shared tablet we had purchased years ago sat exactly where it always did, untouched and gathering dust. He had forgotten that it remained linked to our shared accounts. He had forgotten that technology remembers even when people try to forget. A soft hum filled the kitchen as I powered it on. The brightness illuminated my hands, steady and unfaltering. Even though my heart raced in anticipation, I navigated toward the calendar first, because patterns always reveal what words attempt to hide. A series of neatly colored entries lined the past months, each marked with the same title: Personal Development. Every Wednesday, without fail. The schedule repeated. The times were precise, the location vague, and the consistency suspicious. The pattern grew more unsettling with every scroll. Weeks turned into months, and the sessions grew longer. A tightening sensation formed in my chest as I opened one entry. It contained a location tag he clearly thought I would never see. A loft in a district where neither of us had any reason to be. Another entry revealed a note: Evening Reflection with S. A cold heaviness settled inside me, confirming the truth he had attempted to dress in philosophical language. He had not stumbled into confusion. He had been planning this for months. A slow breath escaped me as I moved toward the messages next. His contacts appeared in a long list, but one name pulled my attention like a magnet. He had not saved her as Sasha. He had renamed her Muse. A flood of messages filled the screen when I opened their thread. At first, the conversation seemed harmless. Recommendations for books on relationships, long paragraphs about emotional awareness, inspirational quotes, and reflective questions. But the tone changed as I scrolled further. Compliments became confessions. Confessions became desires. Desires became plans. A cold clarity sharpened inside me as I read his words. He told her that he felt alive with her. He told her that I did not understand him. He told her that he wanted to rebuild himself beside someone who challenged him spiritually and emotionally. Every line carved deeper into the truth I had been approaching. He had already left our marriage long before he spoke his ultimatum. A painful stillness surrounded me as I found photos embedded between the messages. Images of them in the loft, candles lit, journals open, smiles exchanged. She leaned her head on his shoulder in one. He held her waist in another. Their intimacy radiated through the screen with a boldness that made me swallow a rising ache of betrayal. A deeper examination led me toward their social media links. Her posts carried captions about rebirth and spiritual alignment. His subtle likes appeared under every entry. A picture of a sunset with the caption, "Energy finds energy," had his approval beneath it. Another post read, "Some connections are meant to wake the soul." He had commented with a heart. A sharp breath left me as I noticed a pattern of deleted posts on his account as well. Entire weeks of content removed. Pictures where we stood together had disappeared. Stories highlighting our moments together were gone. He had erased me digitally before attempting to erase me emotionally. A sinking feeling told me there was more, a layer deeper than messages or photos. The voice memo folder blinked at me from the corner of the screen. I tapped it. A thin waveform stretched across the first recording. His voice emerged softly from the speaker, filled with emotion he no longer offered me. He spoke about unhappiness. He spoke about freedom. He spoke about feeling constrained by the life we built. He spoke as if he was the victim of a story he had created. A second recording held her voice. She encouraged him. She validated every complaint. She nurtured every excuse. She painted their betrayal as enlightenment. A final memo caught my attention, labeled simply with a date. I pressed play. A different voice filled the room. A voice that belonged to his brother. A voice I never expected to hear speaking about her. A voice that revealed a truth far darker than anything I had imagined. A voice that admitted he had been seeing Sasha too. A stillness swept through me, stronger than shock, deeper than disappointment. This was the moment the story changed. This was the moment betrayal sharpened into clarity. The first major twist had revealed itself, and it shifted everything I thought I knew. A slow, deliberate calm settled over me as the final voice memo ended, leaving a hollow silence in the kitchen. I stared at the tablet, unable to move for several seconds, as if my mind needed time to stitch together the layers of betrayal I had just uncovered. The man who lived beside me had not merely drifted from our marriage, he had built an elaborate second life behind my back, one involving my husband, his ex, and astonishingly, his own brother. Shock did not break me anymore. It focused me. A firm resolve guided my next movement as I reached for the tablet again. The grief that had once clouded my thoughts now sharpened into something clear and calculating. If he believed his deceit had left me powerless, he had underestimated the resilience forged through years of building a life with my own hands. I would not confront him with tears. I would dismantle his illusions with evidence. A series of screenshots became the first bricks in my quiet wall of truth. My fingers moved swiftly across the screen, capturing every message, every photo, every timestamp that linked him to Sasha. The calendar entries, the color-coded sessions, the location tags, the emojis hidden in their conversations. All of it found its place inside my growing archive. I documented everything with the same meticulous care I used when rebuilding engines. Each screenshot felt like tightening a bolt, securing a piece of the larger structure that would one day collapse over his lies. A new folder on my laptop became the vault for this digital evidence. I transferred the files carefully, ensuring each piece was saved twice, once on the device and once on an external drive I kept locked in my workshop. Betrayers often rely on panic, believing the betrayed will react emotionally and impulsively. He had no idea that I had stepped into a calm he could not anticipate. A steady rhythm formed as I organized the evidence. Messages in one section, photos in another, social media logs carefully arranged in chronological order, voice memos separated and labeled with dates, his brother's confession preserved in multiple copies. The structure grew with a satisfaction that replaced the ache in my chest. This was more than proof. It was preparation. A notebook waited on the counter, the kind I usually filled with measurements and part lists. I opened it to a blank page and wrote the date at the top with a steadiness that surprised me. Evidence log, betrayal. The title alone felt like the moment a door locked behind him, one he would never open again. A detailed timeline began taking shape across the pages. I recorded the first calendar entry marked with Sasha's name. I logged each message that revealed secrets disguised as emotional exploration. I wrote down every excuse he had offered to me in the last months, pairing them with the digital proof that exposed his lies. Every detail mattered. People lie. Dates do not. A quiet empowerment rose within me as I worked. I had cried the night before. I had broken open in the darkness of a house that no longer felt like home. But now, in the early hours of the morning, I felt something different. I felt strategic. I felt composed. I felt ready. A pause in my writing came when I reached his brother's involvement. The betrayal from family added a layer so dark that it demanded its own space. I wrote his name carefully, recording the exact timestamp of the voice memo. His careless admission became the turning point in my plan. This was no longer a story of infidelity. It was a story of deception woven between people who underestimated the woman standing at the center of it. A quiet smile touched my lips, though no joy accompanied it. The expression felt like the moment before a final weld, that brief satisfaction when every part is aligned and ready for the finishing spark. My evidence wall was becoming solid, undeniable, capable of supporting the next step I knew I would have to take. Soft hum filled the room as the printer came to life, spitting out hard copies of the messages and images. Paper does not disappear with a broken password. Paper does not vanish with deleted accounts. Paper carries weight, a weight I intended to use. A sense of finality settled in the room as I placed the printed pages into a labeled envelope. This was no longer me reacting to betrayal. This was me preparing for justice. The woman he believed would break had simply changed form. A last thought crossed my mind as I locked the evidence away inside a metal box. He believed his ultimatum left me with two choices: acceptance or silence. He could not have imagined the third choice I had begun building in the quiet of our home. The preparation was complete, but the execution had only begun. A sudden need for clarity tugged at me after I finished sealing the evidence away. The truth felt too heavy to carry alone, yet too sharp to share with just anyone. My mind drifted to the one person who had always offered honesty without judgment, humor without cruelty, and loyalty without limits. His name surfaced before I even reached for my phone. A deep breath steadied me as I dialed his number. The ring had barely finished its second chime when his familiar voice filled the line. "Are you alive, or have you welded yourself to something again?" he asked, the teasing tone instantly softening the tightness in my chest. A faint tremor crossed my voice as I replied, "I need to talk. In person." There was a brief pause, but not the hesitant kind. His silence meant he understood the weight behind my words. A confident answer followed within seconds. "Give me 20 minutes. I am bringing food, caffeine, and emotional support. Probably in that order." A sense of relief washed over me as I ended the call. I did not realize how tightly I had been holding myself together until I heard his voice. He was more than a friend. He was the grounding force that stepped in when my world tilted out of balance. He never demanded explanations, but he always stood ready to help me rebuild whatever someone tried to break. A soft knock came sooner than expected. When I opened the door, he stood there, holding a paper bag in one hand and an energy drink in the other. His eyebrows lifted as he studied my expression. "You look like someone who has seen a ghost," he said. "Or worse, a man thinking he is profound." A cracked laugh escaped me, the first in what felt like days. "It is worse," I said, motioning him inside. He stepped in without hesitation, dropping the food onto the table, before turning toward me with the seriousness he reserved for rare moments. A gentle tap on my shoulder brought me back to reality. "Tell me everything," he said. "No filters, no smoothing the edges. I want the unedited version." A wave of emotion broke through as I began recounting the past 24 hours. I told him about the ultimatum, the hidden calendar entries, the messages disguised as emotional growth, the photos in the loft, the deleted posts, and finally the voice memo that revealed the involvement of my husband's brother. A stunned silence filled the room when I finished. Then his jaw dropped dramatically. "Your husband is an idiot," he declared. "A spectacular one. A man who could trip over a flat surface and still ask the ground why it exists." A reluctant smile tugged at my lips. His humor did not erase the pain, but it made the weight easier to carry. A sharper expression crossed his face as he leaned forward. "He thought you would crumble," he said. "He thought betrayal would blind you. He forgot who you are." His eyes held a fierce loyalty that strengthened my resolve more than any comforting words could have. A spark of strategy entered his voice as he continued. "You already have the evidence. You already have the truth. Now you need direction. You need leverage. You need someone who will help you use every piece of what he handed you." He tapped the table. "Good news. I am excellent at revenge. Legal revenge. Emotionally satisfying revenge." A quiet determination settled inside me as I listened. "I do not want chaos," I said. "I want precision. I want consequences that match his choices." A grin curved across his face. "Perfect. Precision is my favorite brand of justice." He straightened in his chair, cracking his knuckles theatrically. "Step 1. We build your plan. Step 2. We make sure he never sees it coming. Step 3. We let the truth handle the rest." A powerful certainty grew within me at that moment. I was no longer standing alone in the wreckage of my marriage. I had support, clarity. I had a friend who believed in my strength, even when my heart still trembled. I had begun building justice quietly, but with him beside me, justice would not remain quiet for long. A sense of purpose guided my steps the next morning as I walked toward the law office. The cold air brushed against my skin, but it only sharpened my resolve. Betrayal had wounded me, but evidence had steadied me. Now I needed someone who understood how to turn truth into consequence. The sign above the polished glass door reflected my determined expression back at me. It felt like the first time in weeks that I recognized myself. A calm receptionist led me into a private office where a neatly organized desk sat beneath a large window. The attorney entered with a professionalism that immediately eased the tension in my shoulders. His eyes carried the kind of steadiness a person earns after years of navigating broken promises and shattered lives. He extended his hand with a gentle nod. "Tell me everything," he said. "Start from the beginning." A steady breath filled my lungs as I began explaining the unraveling of my marriage. I told him about the emotional shift, the secret messages, the discovery of the loft meetings, and finally, the voice memo that revealed the involvement of my husband's brother. His expression remained calm, though a flicker of concern tightened his jaw when I detailed the ultimatum. A soft hum escaped him as he leaned back. "You have gathered substantial evidence," he said. "More than most people bring in." His tone shifted slightly, becoming firmer. "This is not a matter of confusion or miscommunication. This is a deliberate pattern of infidelity." A familiar folder in my bag pressed against my elbow. I placed it on the desk, sliding it toward him. "There is more," I said quietly. "Our prenuptial agreement." A subtle lift of his eyebrows showed his interest as he opened the folder. The crisp pages reflected years of assumptions I had chosen to ignore. He skimmed the first section quickly, then slowed as he reached the middle. His eyes paused, focusing intently on one paragraph. A thoughtful silence followed. A shift in his tone became unmistakable when he finally spoke. "This clause," he said, tapping the page with precision, "changes everything." He slid the document around so it faced me. There, in carefully worded legal language, stood a sentence I had forgotten existed. In the event of infidelity, full ownership of joint property would transfer to the faithful spouse. All assets acquired during the marriage would remain under the faithful spouse's control. The unfaithful spouse would assume all legal fees and financial consequences. A pulse of heat moved through my chest as I reread the clause. "He never mentioned it," I whispered. A faint smile crossed the attorney's lips. "He probably believed it would never matter. Most people do." He folded his hands. "You are in an incredibly strong position, legally, strategically, and financially." A wave of clarity washed through me, steady and cleansing. The betrayal that had shattered me felt different now. It no longer weighed down on my chest with suffocating heaviness. Instead, it fueled a growing certainty. The power he believed he held over me had dissolved beneath the reality of his own signature. A new confidence settled in my posture as I asked, "What happens next?" A structured plan formed in his explanation. He would prepare the divorce petition, attach the evidence, reference the prenuptial clause, and begin the legal process immediately. He advised me to remain composed, avoid confrontation, and allow the documents to speak for themselves. "Your husband will not be able to contest this," he said. "The evidence is overwhelming, and the contract leaves no room for negotiation." A quiet strength filled me as I absorbed his words. For the first time since the ultimatum, I felt the ground beneath my feet return. He had believed he was stepping into freedom, while I would crumble behind him. Instead, he had handed me the very blade that would sever the future he had planned with another woman. A final realization struck me as I left the building. I had walked in carrying the weight of betrayal. I walked out carrying power. A quiet determination guided me the moment I returned home from the attorney's office. The house stood still, unaware that its purpose had shifted. It was no longer the space where I attempted to hold a collapsing marriage together. It had become the battlefield upon which I would reclaim my life. Every shelf, every drawer, every corner that once felt shared now awaited transformation. A steady breath filled my chest as I entered the bedroom. His belongings sat scattered across the dresser in familiar disarray. Watches, receipts, cufflinks, colognes, objects that once represented partnership, now appeared like remnants of an intruder. I opened a suitcase with a calmness that felt foreign and yet perfectly right. One by one, I began placing his items inside. Folded shirts, polished shoes, carefully stacked books he never truly read. I packed each item without hesitation, sealing away the traces of a man who no longer belonged in my life. A subtle shift occurred in the room as the space widened. The removal of his belongings created pockets of emptiness that felt strangely liberating. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of his presence lingering around me. I continued through the hallway, collecting scattered memories into boxes. Photographs, gifts, souvenirs from trips that now felt tainted by deceit. I refused to leave even a single reminder out in the open. A sense of renewal unfolded as I reached the living room. The arrangement of furniture had always been a compromise between our preferences. Today, it became mine alone. I shifted the couch to face the window, allowing natural light to flood the space without obstruction. I removed the art pieces he insisted on buying, replacing them with sketches I had drawn and kept hidden for years. The atmosphere changed with every adjustment, transforming into a reflection of the person I had forgotten I was. A soft hum echoed in the kitchen as I wiped the countertops, not out of necessity, but out of intention. I threw away his favorite snacks, removed his coffee mugs from the open shelf, and replaced them with pieces I actually enjoyed using. The house no longer felt like a storage space for a fractured marriage. It felt like a canvas that waited patiently for the moment I reclaimed it. A purposeful silence accompanied me as I prepared the legal documents on the dining table. The attorney's instructions played calmly in my mind. I arranged the printed evidence into labeled folders: messages, photos, calendar logs, voice memos. I placed the prenuptial agreement on top, ready to be served when the moment arrived. Seeing everything organized with such clarity removed the last traces of doubt lingering inside me. A brief pause reminded me of the importance of staying composed. He would not expect this silence, nor the planning behind it. He believed I would struggle, argue, or collapse. He believed he would return to a woman desperate to negotiate. Instead, he would walk into a home stripped of illusions and prepared with precision. A quiet empowerment radiated through me as I locked the evidence inside a drawer he rarely touched. The key felt small and warm in my hand, symbolic in a way he would never understand. I had spent so long trying to maintain peace within this house. Now I was claiming justice without raising my voice. A final glance around the living room settled my resolve. The space did not feel haunted by betrayal anymore. It felt like a battlefield I had already begun to win. Everything was in place. Everything was ready. Every detail had been arranged with the patience of someone who had refused to let pain dictate her choices. I had prepared the battlefield without making a sound, and he would never see it coming. A strange stillness settled inside me on the morning I chose to end the illusion he had built. It was the kind of stillness that arrives only when a person knows the path ahead will not shake them anymore. The documents lay neatly stacked inside a sealed envelope on the dining table, waiting for the moment he would walk through the door. The evidence, the truth, the contract he signed years ago, they were all ready. A message from his mother arrived unexpectedly, asking if we could stop by that afternoon. She wanted to discuss recent tension. Her choice of words told me he had already begun shaping a narrative that painted him as confused rather than cruel. I agreed to the visit without hesitation. A family setting was not where he expected the mask to fall, which made it the perfect place. A quiet strength accompanied me as I arrived at his parents' home. The familiar porch suddenly looked different, as though it sensed the storm that waited inside. His mother welcomed me with a hopeful smile, unaware of the truths she was about to hear. His father sat in the living room, arms crossed, already prepared to defend the son he believed he understood. My husband waited beside them, restless, tense, and wearing a carefully constructed expression of concern. A heavy silence filled the room when I entered. He rose halfway, hesitated, and then sat back down. "We should talk," he said softly, as if speaking gently could rewrite everything he had done. A steady voice answered him. "We will." A slow breath left his mother as she folded her hands in her lap. "We just want to understand," she said. "He told us things have been difficult. He feels unheard. He feels restricted. We want to help both of you find a solution." Their alliance, built on deception, shattered faster than any of them expected. A quiet sense of justice followed me as I watched from a distance. I did not intervene. I did not speak against them. I did not fuel their downfall. I simply stepped away and allowed their own actions to carry consequences they never imagined. The truth had created its own momentum, shaping an outcome far more powerful than any confrontation could have delivered. A steady breath filled my lungs as I realized something important. Justice did not need vengeance to be effective. It needed clarity, patience, and the weight of truth presented at the right moment. Their world collapsed not because I destroyed it, but because they built it on lies they believed would never be discovered. I did not have to chase justice. It arrived on its own. A gentle shift in my life became noticeable months after the divorce finalized. A shift so natural that it almost felt strange to remember how heavy my world once felt. But the digital trail she left behind contradicted every attempt at self-preservation. Her words no longer inspired her audience. They exposed her instead. A harsher fallout struck the brother who believed his involvement would remain hidden. His careless voice memo, filled with arrogance and entitlement, spread through the family long before he could explain himself. His parents refused to entertain excuses. His friends ridiculed his choices. Even the few people who once admired his carefree attitude recoiled from the realization that he had crossed boundaries even he could not justify. A complete collapse unfolded in the relationships among the three of them. My husband, his ex, and his brother had created a tangled world they believed would remain hidden behind secrecy and self-righteous rhetoric. Instead, every thread snapped under the pressure of exposure. None of them blamed themselves. They blamed one another, each insisting they were misled, misunderstood, or manipulated. His reputation, carefully crafted through selective vulnerability, began crumbling beneath the weight of the truth he had tried to hide. A rapid unraveling reached Sasha as well. Her social circle, built around workshops, coaching sessions, and curated images of enlightenment, reacted with disbelief when the details emerged. People who attended her events questioned her integrity and demanded explanations she could not offer without exposing herself further. Posts vanished from her profile. Comments criticized her manipulation. Clients canceled sessions, refusing to entrust their emotional journeys to a woman who encouraged another woman's marriage to collapse for her own benefit. A silent withdrawal followed as she attempted to control the narrative. She posted vague statements about personal transformation and the discomfort of growth, hoping to redirect attention away from the damage she had willingly participated in. But because people cannot ignore a man who has destroyed his home so thoroughly that even his family can no longer defend him, a growing distance formed between him and the people he once relied on for validation. Friends he believed would support him stepped back, unsure how to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the man revealed in the evidence. Avoidance replaced invitations. Short messages replaced warm conversations. No one wanted to align themselves with someone who spoke of spiritual growth while betraying his marriage with such calculated cruelty. A deeper collapse unfolded in his professional circle. He had spent years building an image based on authenticity, emotional awareness, and honesty. Clients who once admired him now questioned every word he had ever spoken. Screenshots found their way into private group chats. The recordings he created to impress another woman circulated among people who once trusted him. The prenup? A controlled nod followed. The infidelity clause. His father whispered the words as if tasting something bitter. He loses everything. A full collapse overtook him then, shoulders shaking, breath broken, face buried in his hands. The man who once believed he held the power had crumbled in front of everyone he hoped would defend him. A quiet truth settled around us. His illusion did not fall because I confronted him. It fell because he built it on lies he believed would never surface. A noticeable shift in the air followed the confrontation. A shift that moved through every corner of his life, like a quiet storm he never believed would reach him. The truth did not travel loudly at first. It traveled through whispers, startled reactions, and the stunned silence of those who had once praised our marriage. Word spread, not because I announced anything. A broken sound escaped him as he reached for the page. No, that is taken out of context. A quiet firmness entered my voice. There is no context that excuses betraying your marriage and encouraging your brother to share the same woman behind my back. A deep stillness filled the room. His illusions finally shattered under the weight of evidence he could not twist. Tears filled his eyes, and he sank into the couch as though the truth had stolen the strength from his body. A desperate tone replaced his arrogance. "Sienna, please, we can fix this. I made mistakes. I was confused. I thought you would understand." A soft, cold finality shaped my response. "I understand perfectly. I understand who you are now." A trembling plea followed. "Do not do this. Please. I will stop everything. I will." "You will do nothing," I said. "The prenuptial agreement you signed ensures that this divorce will proceed exactly as it should." A sharp gasp echoed from his mother. A slow turn of his mother's head revealed her confusion. "Cheating? What is she talking about?" A quiet precision shaped my next movements as I laid the printed messages on the table. Photos, calendar logs, screenshots. His digital trail spread before them like a map of every lie he had told. His mother covered her mouth. His father's jaw tightened. My husband froze, unable to deny what stood in front of him in black and white. A trembling whisper escaped him. "You went through my things?" A steady answer followed. "I went through the truth, something you abandoned long before I discovered it." A final piece of evidence remained. I placed the printed transcript of the voice memo on the table, the one in which his brother admitted he had also been involved with Sasha. His mother's hand dropped. His father stood in shock. My husband's face went white, stripped of the confidence he once carried so proudly. A delicate moment passed before I placed the envelope on the coffee table. "There will not be a solution," I said calmly. "There will be an end." A flicker of panic crossed his face. Sienna, please do not overreact. We can talk about this privately. A single nod dismissed the attempt at control. No, everything will be said here. A quiet tremble appeared in his hands as I opened the folder. The first sheet rested on top. Petition for divorce. His mother gasped softly, her hand flying to her chest. His father leaned forward with a sharp inhale, and my husband's expression collapsed into disbelief. A hollow whisper left his mouth. You are divorcing me? A calm answer followed. Yes. A shocked stutter broke through his composure. For what? For wanting to grow? For wanting honesty? For cheating, I said, cutting through the lie. Not once, not accidentally, for months, carefully, repeatedly, and not only with Sasha. A stunned silence gripped the room. A quiet pride lives in me now, shaped by everything I endured. I made the choice he never believed I would make. I chose myself. I chose my peace. I chose a future where love is not a performance, but a promise kept through actions, not excuses. A final question remains, one I offer to anyone listening. If someone ever hands you two choices that break your heart, will you have the courage to create the third choice that saves it? Because the day I chose myself was the day my life finally began. Peace does not come from holding on. Peace comes from letting go of the hands that drag you toward your own destruction. A deeper understanding unfolded as I rebuilt my life, piece by piece. Betrayal had broken something inside me, but it had also forced me to look at the strength I had hidden beneath the weight of compromise. I discovered that self-worth is not measured by how tightly you hold on to someone. It is measured by the courage it takes to walk away when someone chooses to dishonor your loyalty. A fierce truth revealed itself in the days that followed. I did not lose him. He lost me. He lost the woman who believed in him. He lost the life we built together. He lost the stability he mistook for weakness. In the end, his greatest downfall was not the exposure of his lies, but the realization that I survived without him. Forfeited your place in all of it. A final plea trembled in his voice. Do you really feel nothing for me anymore? A steady truth stood ready on my tongue as I met his gaze. I feel nothing that binds me to you. The woman who loved you does not exist anymore. You erased her the day you handed me those two choices. A deep, broken breath shuddered through him as he stepped back. The reality of my words settled over him with a weight he could no longer escape. Trusting someone does not mean ignoring what your heart tries to warn you about. He looked smaller now, not physically, but in spirit. His arrogance had been stripped away, leaving a shell that felt lost in the consequences he never believed he would face. A soft exhale escaped me as I stepped onto the porch, keeping a steady distance between us. You did not lose everything, I said. You gave it away, piece by piece, choice by choice. A flicker of anguish crossed his face as he lowered his head. I know, he said. I know I ruined everything. I know I hurt you in ways I did not understand at the time. I know you may never forgive me, but please, please do not shut me out completely. I need a chance to make things right. A clarity settled over me, brighter and calmer than anything I had felt during the storm he created. You cannot make things right, I said. Not because you are incapable, but because the things you destroyed were not yours to rebuild. My trust, my peace, my future. You forfeited your place in all of it. The scent of alcohol lingered faintly around him, an echo of desperation clinging to his clothes. A strained breath left his lips as he attempted to form words. Sienna, please, he murmured, voice fractured. I need to talk. I need you. A firm calm settled over me. the kind that comes only after surviving something that once felt insurmountable. "There is nothing left for us to talk about," I said quietly, but with a strength he could not ignore. A tremor ran through his hands as he stepped closer. "I made mistakes," he whispered. I thought I wanted something else. I thought she understood me. I thought freedom meant choosing myself." His voice cracked. "I was wrong. Everything fell apart. She left. My family barely speaks to me. People I trusted walked away. I have nothing left." A silence followed, but not the painful silence he once used to control a room. This silence belonged to me. It gave me time to study the man who had once called himself my partner. I no longer needed validation from the person who broke me. I no longer carried the fear of losing someone unworthy of my love. Peace had not simply returned. I had earned it. A sharp, unexpected knock at my door broke the quiet rhythm of an evening I had planned to spend in peaceful solitude. The sound carried a weight that did not belong to a stranger, a weight that hinted at familiarity, distorted by time and consequence. My pulse remained steady as I approached the door, but a subtle awareness told me exactly who waited on the other side even before I opened it. A hollow version of him stood beneath the porch light, almost unrecognizable. His eyes, once filled with misplaced confidence, now carried a dull emptiness that revealed sleepless nights and regret he could no longer hide. His shoulders slumped as if he struggled to hold up the remains of a life he had destroyed with his own choices. They no longer looked at me with sympathy. They looked at me with admiration. My closest friend remained by my side, reminding me that loyalty exists even when love fails. His presence no longer felt like a lifeline. It felt like a reminder of the connections that truly matter. A renewed joy began slipping back into my life in small, unexpected ways. I adopted a stray cat that wandered into my workshop, naming her Torque because she refused to sit still. She slept on my lap during quiet evenings, offering a simple companionship that required nothing from me except kindness. A final realization settled within me during one quiet night as I stood by the window, looking out at a peaceful street illuminated by soft porch lights. Peace had not returned because time had passed. Peace had returned because I reclaimed myself. I had walked through betrayal, gathered truth with my own hands, and rebuilt a life that belonged solely to me. My home had transformed into a space that reflected only my presence. No shadows of betrayal, no lingering tension, no unspoken fears waiting to surface. A deeper shift unfolded within me when I realized how much stronger I had become. I no longer walked through life waiting for stability to crumble. I no longer doubted my intuition. I no longer questioned my worth. The woman who once cried alone in the spare bedroom had grown into someone who understood her value with unwavering certainty. A quiet pride settled in my chest as I looked around the living room one afternoon. The artwork on the walls belonged to me. The furniture had been arranged exactly as I preferred, and the sunlight sliding through the windows illuminated a home built on independence rather than compromise. Peace felt different now. It felt chosen. A sense of balance returned to my relationships as well. Friends who had watched my world fall apart now witnessed the rebuilding of my confidence. Time had moved forward quietly, not rushing, not dragging, simply carrying me toward a version of myself I had forgotten existed. The chaos that once clung to every corner of my mind had faded, leaving behind a steady calm that felt earned rather than accidental. A renewed sense of purpose guided my days as I returned fully to the rhythm of my workshop, the sound of engines, the scent of metal, and the satisfaction of fixing something broken created a grounding comfort I had long needed. Customers noticed the difference in my energy. Friends commented that my smile looked real again. Even the workers in my shop seemed to stand a little taller, reflecting the stability I had finally regained. A peaceful silence filled my evenings in a way that never felt lonely. I cooked meals I actually enjoyed, watched documentaries without someone questioning my choices, and fell asleep without the weight of suspicion pressing against my ribs.